Welcome to How to Train Up Your Kids in the Lord with Logos Bible Software. Tonight's topics include the introduction. We're going to discuss some recommended but not required resources. We're going to see what's in your library already before you buy another book on this topic. And then we're going to talk about the 10 Commandments, show you how to get proverbial wisdom, psalms, and key passages. We'll review some key passages dealing with family and children. We'll talk about understanding the fatherhood of God theologically, how to introduce the Bible and key ideas early in a child's life, how to find parent examples in the Bible, whether it's to embrace or avoid. We'll also do some word studies, and then we'll wrap up with some exhortation, warnings, and 9 general guiding principles. This webinar is definitely packed tonight. Now, for those of you who are new, what is the purpose of a webinar? Well, first, we're going to provide training tonight so that you can use Logos Bible software better. Second, we're going to provide training so you can study the topic for yourself. I certainly can't be a parent for all of you. You all are in different situations, different places in life, and so I want to equip you for your specific situation. Along the way, we will provide biblical insights related to the topic. We're also going to provide a personal book or manual to equip yourself and others. Now, this manual is the one that I've created with the webinar, and it's all my notes with all the links. And as you can see here, I've got the table of contents open at the left. And as you can see, it's quite detailed in all the information that we have here. So when you purchase the webinar, this is included with the webinar. Now, the webinar is fast-paced. It's going to include a lot of information to increase its training value. Therefore, some of the items you can follow along, and that's great if you can keep up. But if you fall behind, that's okay because we're recording it tonight. So as I mentioned here, all webinars are recorded and edited for purchase and review. Now, as far as the webinar, we are editing it for a superior learning experience, so you can watch this offline as much as you want. If you order early, the price is $4.99. Then after 2 weeks, we bring up the price to $7.99. And that way you can take advantage of the early bird offer. And we will make this webinar available by this Sunday. And you will be personally emailed when the webinar download is available. And you can pre-order now at LearnLogos.com/buy webinar if you want to just go ahead and take care of that tonight. Now, over at the right, we have more in-depth training. The webinars just cover a slice of Logos, but if you want to learn the whole system, we've got training for version 4, 5, and 6. 6 right now is over 34 hours of training. It's broken into 3 major sections. The first one is going to teach you everything about the features of Logos Bible Software version 6. The second part is going to teach you how to actually use it for studying the Bible. We're going to teach you about layouts, give you collections, whole bunch more. And then the third part is we have over 450 book overviews to help you learn more about the books in your library that you use for studying, as well as guide you with a recommended list for purchasing new books. So that's a real handy set of training. Now, as far as the 2016 live training schedule goes, you can go to LearnLogos.com/events. If you do have any topic suggestions, feel free to email me at webinars@LearnLogos.com. Here's our schedule looking like for the next couple months. So in several weeks, we're going to do the mini group Bible study, False Teachers, Deception, and Discernment. Then on Monday, 4/11, we're going to reboot the Personal Book Builder and redo that with the 2016 update. Then on Monday, 5/2, we're going to do principles and strategies to study any Bible topic. So this is going to be a really unique webinar in that we're going to walk you through the principles and strategies to study any topic in the Bible. And then we're going to take a little break in June because I have some significant PhD classes to attend to. And then we'll pick up on Monday, 7/11 on how to study the resurrection. I can't believe I haven't done that topic yet, so we're going to do that one on Monday, 7/11. So let's get started on how to train up your kids in the Lord with Logos Bible software. Now let me jump to the personal book and just make a comment right out of the gate. There are a ton of resources for raising kids in a Christian worldview. There is a lot. So I had to restrict it to a couple things. Number one, books that I feel are absolutely essential. Also, I had to choose books based on what was actually in the Logos library. But I have a special section here on print audio. And these are some very unique resources that I have found very helpful as a parent myself, as well as talking to other parents they have found helpful. So the first one, and these are all on Amazon, and I have the links here, is the Gospel for Children. So let me bring this into the website so you can see this. This is a really simple book based on pictures and keywords, walking them through the gospel. And it really is complete. So highly recommend this. I use this with the kids. It really is an excellent book on walking through the gospel. Then there's the Fundamentals of Faith workbooks. These are really great as well. They're put out by Grace to You, and they're an excellent resource once a kid or a child is able to read. This is really meant for, I would say, at least, fourth grade or higher, but another excellent book to have. There's a teacher guide and audio lessons that come with that, so that can be very useful, and the Fundamentals of the Faith audio lessons are free at Grace to You. Then there's the Family Worship book, and I have just found this to be a very useful book in just guiding you through the whole process. How do you do devotions in the family? What are the best ways to approach this? It's just a really all-around good, helpful resource, so be aware of that. And then this one, even though it's not spiritual, it really is when you think about it. We used this book with all three of our kids, and it was phenomenal. In fact, my wife used this with the kindergarten kids that she teaches, and it's Teach Your Child to Read in 100 Easy Lessons. Now, this does not mean they're going to be reading in 100 days. Based on your child's abilities, it'll sometimes be quicker or slower, but this book works. I believe that teaching them to read is so important, and you can start doing this really once they can start recognizing letters. As early as 1.5 or 2, you could be starting to use this book, and the sooner they can read, the sooner they can read the Bible, and that gives them such an advantage in later life. And I have just seen through my own experience as well as other families, the sooner a child reads, the better they will be equipped for life. So wonderful resource, and it does work. It's amazing. And then just some fun ones. The We Sing Bible songs. These are just some classic songs that all kids love to hear in the car. It comes in a CD, and it's a great way. If you don't have a CD player in your car, you can convert this to an MP3 and do it that way, or put them on your phone. And these are just great songs to pass the time. Some of them are just silly. Some are teaching some basic Bible truths. Very helpful. And then lastly is the audio dramas. These are incredibly well put together. And it's the Adventures in Odyssey series. And they teach wonderful Bible lessons. They keep the kids and children engaged and entertained. It's fun for adults, fun for the whole family. And they really do teach some amazing lessons. And I can't think of a better resource to get to entertain and yet instruct in scriptures. And what's nice about this is it does it in a real fun story format fashion. So fantastic resource. Can't say enough about that one. Now, a couple more things. As we move into the infant related topics, this would be birth to 2 years. There are a couple things that can be really handy. And again, this is about creating structure and environment that's conducive to a home that's in order. Now, this particular resource, BabyWise, has a little controversy with it, but there are some great tips in here that we have found helpful. Now, one of the things they talk about here is the demand feeding with a mother who is nursing versus scheduled feeding. And we did both with our children and found that the schedule really was superior, but here's the key lesson. Don't be so legalistic with it. Sometimes it's time to feed the child and the baby's sleeping. Let them sleep. Rule number 1, never wake a sleeping baby. Unless there's something wrong, of course. But this is just a great little book, give you some wisdom, teach you about structure. And as any book like this, where there's a controversy, use wisdom and discretion. The key in any resource is not to be too strict and legalistic. Change is balanced by grace, truth, and discipline. So wonderful resource there. Some issues that come up at this age is infant baptism. And I've got several resources here. The first one, Against Infant Baptism by Matthew Waymeyer. So he'll go and take the position that it's not biblical. And then we have the other individual, Brian Holstrom, who takes the position that infant baptism is important. Now, you have the Catholics and you have the Reforms who do this and practice it for two different reasons. The Catholics will do it because they're trying to impart grace so that if the child were to die, they would be able to go to heaven. The Reformed position doesn't take that at all. There's no sanctifying grace that's imparted, but they take it for covenantal reasons, to take the first step of bringing them into God's family. You need to see that difference by having these resources. And a really good book to help you understand the historical overview is by David Wright. So, very good resources on infant baptism. Sometimes a child is not born, there's a death of an infant or a miscarriage. And in this situation, it's very heartbreaking. We've had several children in our church die before birth, and we've had some that have died after, and it's a very difficult time. And so John MacArthur put out a book called Safe in the Arms of God, an excellent resource to help you understand. Argument behind this, and I won't go too much detail, is really not an age of accountability, but a condition of accountability. A child who's not born, who dies before they can grasp the knowledge to receive Christ or reject Christ, if they don't have that ability, then really how can they be condemned? Some have tried to make the argument, well, all elect babies will go to heaven, and certainly I wouldn't disagree with that. I just believe that all babies born are elect who can't have the condition to believe. So it can be a little circular argument there, but nevertheless, should you find yourself in a situation, a book like this can be a great comfort. Malcolm and Nick Cameron have a book. It's called It's Okay to Cry, Finding Hope When Struggling with Infertility and Miscarriage. This is put out by Christian Focus, excellent publisher. I highly recommend that. And also the Journal of Biblical Counseling will give you some resources and a way to counsel someone through this, give you additional insights and things to say. So I wanted to bring that in because this does happen quite a bit, at least, and then Logos will highlight it. So you can use this live on the tool, and that was the word keep, not peek. And so you can take familiar passages, run the word puzzle, and then they can become familiar with the vocabulary that's in the passage. Great little tool. And again, start small to make it a little bit easier, and then just change the size of it. Great little tool. Now, the next resource that we want to talk about is how do we impart proverbial wisdoms, Psalms for worship, and other key passages. So let's explore the Proverbs Explorer. This is really a neat tool. So Tools, Proverbs Explorer, and this is a split screen, so there's a little chevron up here at the top left you have to click on to expand. Now, what I like about the Proverbs Explorer is that you can pick out various themes. So if we want to deal with speech, we just simply go down the theme, click on speech, and now we have all the speech-related proverbs. Now, you may want to pick out a handful of these for memorization or use these to share with your children. Now, how do we practically do this? Well, if you find a situation where your child needs a little bit of a rebuke or needs some wisdom and some discipline because they're not handling speech very well, by you selecting speech, you now have a list of all the proverbs. You can read through those quickly and see which one would be the most applicable. And that is going to allow you to apply the Word of God effectively with your children. And that is critical. Now remember, Proverbs are principles. They're not promises. They're generally true, but not in all cases, okay? So we can't use them as like the law and a promise. Like if we teach our kids in the way of the Lord, that guarantees they're going to be saved. It does not. And so very important. There's different ways you can use the Proverbs Explorer. We could do it from a perspective of a son or a child, a daughter, a brother, etc. Use the theme family, children. Those are some pretty good ones that come up. I'm going to close down speech. I'm going to go down the theme. We'll locate family in the list. Here's family. Let's go with that. So here's all the proverbs related to family. And that can be wonderfully helpful. And I think if we go, here we go, a child. So if we click on that, here we talk about Proverbs 31 and about her children. That's why this came back. So those are some of the helpful ones in the Proverbs Explorer. And also key themes like speech, money, work, and character. Again, as the child gets older, some of these themes will be helpful. So clicking A to Z will sort them alphabetically. Thanks for that reminder, Edwin. And so let's see now if we go to theme and we can find family, children. There we go, 57. Notice also in the Proverbs Explorer, they're now taking Proverbs from other passages outside of Proverbs. So if a specific quote is proverbial in nature. In a particular passage, you're going to see it here. So that makes the Proverbs Explorer even more useful than it was when it originally was created. The next tool is the Psalms Explorer. So go to Tools and go to Psalms Explorer. Now, the Psalms Explorer is really neat, works in a similar fashion to the Proverbs Explorer. I've clicked on the chevron at the top left to open up the split window. We've got genre, book, attribution, in other words, who's the author, various themes, structures, and tags. And again, themes is what we want to focus on. And again, the purpose of the Psalms in raising our children is to cultivate worship. And the Psalms are just so wonderful for that. And so if we want to talk about faith, or God's love, or God's power, or joy, we have simply to click on the link, and then we can work through these Psalms. And so we might want to focus on Thanksgiving Royal Psalms, like 107. And then we can take ourselves to there, look over it, and then say, yeah, this is a psalm I'd like to read to my child or have them meditate on. So great little tool to encourage worship and meditation on God's Word. Also, with the parallelism and structure tool, you can begin to show them the connections and begin to teach them how to study the Bible for themselves, doing some simple observation. You can say, okay, so the letter B means there's a link between for he is good and for his loving kindness is everlasting. So you could say to the child, how is being good and loving kindness everlasting connected? Get them to think in parallel structure. This is huge for their critical thinking, but also it's huge for interpreting the passage. And when they begin to see these connections, the word will become that much more exciting to them. So a great way to not only meditate and study God's Word, but also teach them incredible thoughts of God through these structures. Pretty awesome. There's a lot of key passages in the Bible, but I did want to highlight a few of them. You may never have thought the elder passages would be appropriate for children, but just stop and think for a moment. When God set up the church after Pentecost, and Paul and James and all of them started to set up little churches, every church was to have a plurality of elders. These elders were to be godly men, and Paul, writing to Timothy and Titus, outlined those specific qualifications. Now, if you think, if these are the leaders of the church, these attributes, these ways of living, then they are a godly model for the rest of the church. In other words, the elders are the one who are living out the godly life, but they are the example to all of us. In other words, we too should be living our lives this way. And so I have found that